The galaxy had unanimously voted to outlaw human ingenuity in 2175, though no one dared call it fear. It began, as most tragedies do, with good intentions. When Earth joined the Galactic Accord, diplomats praised humanity's vibrant unpredictability, a polite term for the chaos simmering beneath their civility. Wars were fought with rules then, plasma cannons at dawn, surrender treaties inked in noble blood. But humans, with their caffeine-fueled nights and fractal imaginations, treated war like a joke waiting for a punchline. The Bovaran hegemony learned this too late. After the incident stricken from all records, save a single maligned footnote, the Council enacted Article Text 7: No human shall partake in, advise on, or weaponize baked goods in interstellar conflict. Now, decades later, humanity's past is a ghost haunting Earth's academies. The Quix, gelatinous scholars who float through lecture halls in brine-filled suits, devour sanitized histories like scripture. They memorize approved timelines, the asteroid arbitration, the Helix Nebula ceasefire. Yet whispers linger in the archive's damp corners, where custodians scrub data cores raw, and professors clutch flamethrowers to protect the truth. The Quix, ever curious, have started to wonder. Why do human instructors flinch at the word innovation? Why does the Academy's principal smell faintly of cloven musk? And why, in a universe teeming with antimatter and AI, is lactose considered a war crime? Some questions, the galaxy understands, are best left unanswered. But the Quix, bless their translucent hearts, have never learned when to stop digging. Chapter 1. The Academy's halls hummed with the wet electric whisper of Quix hydration suits. Lena Choi walked the neon-lit corridors as she always did, quickly, shoulders tense, boots scuffing the biopolymer floors in a rhythm that said, "Leave me alone." The air smelled of antiseptic and brine, a scent that clung to every alien scholastic compound on Earth. Humanity's homeworld had become a museum of its own worst impulses, she thought. A place where history was curated, not lived. Her classroom was a relic, while the rest of the academy gleamed with holographic projectors and zero-gravity lecture pits. Lena's domain was a windowless vault of analog screens and crumbling textbooks. The Quix loved it. Their gelatinous forms pulsed cerulean inside hydration suits as they hovered over her desk, tentacles brushing the spines of forbidden human novels. "Dr. Choi," they'd ask in their watery translated voices, "why do your people burn their own libraries?" She never answered. Some truths were too heavy for creatures who'd never known war. Today's lesson was a farce. The approved holovid, humanity's noble pacifism, depicted velvet-clad diplomats signing treaties under alien suns. Lena watched her students' bioluminescence flicker with awe, and felt the old acid rise in her throat. Noble pacifism. As if the galaxy hadn't collectively flinched when humans arrived, their ship still stinking of ozone and radiation. She switched off the projector. "Tomorrow," she said, "we'll discuss why victors edit their laughter out of history." The Quix rippled confusion. One brave scholar extended a pseudopod toward her. "But the curriculum states..." "The curriculum," Lena interrupted, "is a bedtime story. War isn't won by parades, it's won by survivors. And survivors," she trailed off, fingers brushing the scar beneath her collar. "Survivors learn to lie." Alone in the archives that night, Lena drank lukewarm coffee and traced the names etched into the storage racks. Kessler, Nguyen, Varma, archivists who'd retired after asking inconvenient questions. The air tasted of static and mildew, a comforting rot. Her flamethrower, a sleek chrome cylinder labeled archival purge tool, rested against her thigh. The Bovarans had tried to burn Earth's history once. Never again. A sound. Not the drip of faulty hydration suits, but the wet slap of Quix tentacles on metal. Lena turned to find 3 students floating in the doorway, their suits dimmed to nervous violet. "We found a discrepancy," bubbled the lead Quix, its voice modulator trembling. A holodisc glowed in its grasp, etched with the triangular sigil of the old Earth Coalition. Lena's pulse quickened. She knew that symbol. Every archivist did. It marked the artifacts too dangerous to digitize, too volatile for a galaxy that feared human ingenuity. The disk's label made her snort. The Great Cheese War. Classified Galactic Council Security Protocol 001. "You shouldn't have this," she said, too quietly. The Quix drifted closer. "We accessed restricted sector Theta. Your security codes are predictable. Birth year, mother's name," Lena realized. She'd used the same password since the Purge. For a species that could compute quantum probabilities in their ectoplasm, hacking human systems was child's play. She inserted the disk. The holovid stank. Decades-old ration bars and gunpowder flooded the room as the projection bloomed, a battlefield strewn with bovine corpses, their 6-legged bodies swollen and foaming at the mouths. Human soldiers in rusted exosuits laughed, hurling glowing cheese wheels from catapults. "Lactobacillus X," the narrator intoned. "A genetically engineered pathogen that converts Bovaran digestive tracts into bioexplosives. Casualties, 2 million. Survivors 0. The Quix made a sound like boiling seawater. One student's hydration suit began cycling emergency fluids. "This," Lena whispered, "is why we're banned from galactic war." The disc ended with the Bovaran High Commander's surrender speech, his tripartite jaws trembling. "We yield not to your cruelty, but to your madness. What honor exists in a species that weaponizes laughter?" Silence pooled in the archive. Lena stared at the frozen hologram, a human soldier offering a cheese wheel to the camera like a vintage beer ad. Her coffee had gone cold. "Why show us?" a Quix asked. Its hydration suit had flushed storm cloud gray. Lena thumbed the flamethrower's ignition switch. "A habit. Because the galaxy wants you to fear human violence, they should fear our jokes." Later, as the students departed in a haze of bewildered bioluminescence, Lena noticed something. One had left behind a sketch, a hurried charcoal rubbing from the principal's office wall. The shape made her breath catch. A charging port for hydration suits, yes, but the outline was unmistakably Bovaran. Triple-jawed. Predatory. The scar beneath her collar burned. Survivors lied. Yes. But some truths clawed their way out anyway. Outside, the Academy's artificial dawn tinted the sky migraine pink. Somewhere in the compound, a ventilation duct coughed, a wet, ruminant sound. Lena poured her coffee into a potted fern, and whispered the old oath every archivist learned before their first purge. "We remember, even when they beg us to forget." Chapter 2. The Academy's artificial night cycle painted the corridors in bruised purple shadows, the bioluminescent algae, along the walls dimmed to a sickly simmer. Dr. Lena Choi walked alone, her boots echoing too loudly in the hollowed-out silence. The Quix had left ghostly trails in the air. Damp, ionized streaks where their hydration suits had bobbed in frantic retreat after the holovid's final frame. She could still smell their fear, a briny musk clinging to her sleeves. Cowards, she thought, but without venom. Fear was the only rational response to humanity's resume. Her quarters were no refuge. The walls here were thinner, the ventilation system wheezing like a dying smoker. She poured a finger of whiskey into a mug labeled "World's Okayest Archivist" and slumped into a chair that had long ago surrendered its springs. The flamethrower lay disassembled on the desk, its chrome guts gleaming under a solitary lamp. Maintenance was a meditation. Screw by screw, she rebuilt it, her hands steady even as her mind churned. The principal's office loomed in her thoughts, that damn sketch of the Bovaran-shaped charger, the wet cough she'd heard in the ducts. Paranoia was a professional hazard, but the galaxy had a way of confirming her worst instincts. At 0300, a knock. Not the polite bloop of Quix tentacles on polymer, but the staccato tap-tap of human fingernails. Lena slid the flamethrower's fuel cell into her pocket before opening the door. The student floated in a darkened hydration suit, its bioluminescence muted to a stealthy indigo. Lena recognized the pattern of neurotic tentacle twitching. Cyril, the Quix, who'd first brought her the holovid. Its voice modulator hissed static. "They're deleting files." In the restricted sector, 3 custodial drones scrubbed the metadata tags for Cheese War an hour ago. Lena sipped her whiskey. "And you're telling me this why?" Cyril's suit flushed a defiant magenta. "You said survivors lie. We wish to unlie." Unlie. The word slithered into her chest, sharp and warm. She thought of her predecessor, Dr. Nguyen, vanishing mid-semester after submitting a thesis on Bovaran cultural fragility. The Academy's newsletter had called it a sabbatical. Lena had found Nguyen's access card in a janitorial incinerator. They took the service tunnels, a labyrinth of dripping pipes and flickering LED strips that stank of synthetic algae and regret. Cyril bobbed behind her, tentacles coiled tight. Lena's palm itched for the flamethrower, but she kept her hands loose. Not yet, she told herself. Not unless the walls start lactating. The restricted sector was a crypt. Frost crept over the server stacks, their humming cores silenced by Quix sabotage, a tangle of biogel wires ripped from ports, data drives dissolving in puddles of enzymatic acid. Clever. Lena crouched, her breath pluming in the cold, and scraped a sliver of half-melted drive casing with her thumbnail. They used a neurolytic solvent. Bovaran made. Eats silicon but leaves organic matter untouched. She held the fragment to the light, its edges iridescent with rainbow corrosion. "Your principal's got a delicate palate." Cyril extruded a trembling pseudopod toward a nearby terminal. "There's a tertiary backup. Offline storage." Its voice pitched upward, a warble of hope. "We learned human redundancy protocols in systems engineering." Lena stared at the Quix. Its hydration suit had developed a hairline crack near the dorsal node, misting the air with lavender-scented electrolytes. She'd seen this before, the feverish glow of a scholar who'd tasted forbidden truth. It always ended in tears. Or acid burns. The backup drive was hidden behind a false wall, its keypad coated in a thin film of dust. Lena blew on it, revealing 4 smudged keys. Birth year, mother's name. The display flashed red. "Allow me," Cyril bubbled. Tentacles slithered into the port. Ectoplasm churning as it bypassed encryption. The Quix's bioluminescence stuttered, cycling through stress colors, cyan to bile yellow. Lena watched, grudgingly impressed. Humanity's greatest weapon was desperation. The Quix's was raw computational desperation. The logs unfolded like a poison flower. Surrender declaration #4421. 9 Bovaran High Command. The Human Alliance's deployment of Lactobacillus X constitutes a Category Omega breach of Galactic War Accord. However, cessation of hostilities is not motivated by casualty metric CNX7, but by the text blurred. Lena leaned closer.
ethical revulsion at the victor's methodology. A civilization that weaponizes absurdity cannot be permitted battlefield access. Their unpredictability poses an existential, a noise, not in the tunnels, but inside the walls, a guttural wet grinding like a cow chewing cud in a slaughterhouse chute. Cyril's tentacles spasmed, ejecting from the terminal. They're coming. Lena was already moving. She yanked the drive free and tossed it to Cyril. Split up. Meet at the archive's eastern airlock in 10. But go, and keep that drive dry. Your suit's leaking. She took the long route, ducking through the hydroponics lab where genetically modified ferns lashed at her ankles. The vents above clattered. Something heavy shifted, pressing against the aluminum ducts. Lena thumbed the flamethrower's safety off. The principal intercepted her at the archive's entrance. He looked almost human tonight. A smooth silicone mask stretched over his Bovaran skull. His tripartite jaws hidden beneath a high-collared coat. But his eyes gave him away too many eyelids, blinking in discordant rhythms. Choi. His voice was a butter-smooth baritone, the kind used to recite poetry at mass funerals. Curating more unorthodox lesson plans. Lena leaned against the doorframe, feigning nonchalance, just auditing the janitorial budget. Your drones have a pricey taste in data solvents. The principal's laugh was a shotgun blast. Ah, the famous human wit. Tell me, when your species weaponized cheese, did you pause to laugh? Or was the joke purely for posterity? She matched his smile, sharp and mirthless. Jokes are funnier when the audience survives to groan. His coat rippled, a tremor of muscle beneath the facade. Lena scar-itched, a phantom burn, where a Bovaran plasma round had grazed her lung during the purge of Tau Ceti. She wondered if he could smell her adrenaline, that sour tang beneath the whiskey and gun oil. Return the drive, he said softly, and I'll ensure your students graduate. Persist, and I'll excise this little infection of curiosity. Lena tilted her head. You're offering me a job reference. How very Bovaran of you. His mask split, just a slit, vertically bisecting his face, to reveal a blackened tongue tipped with hooked barbs. We culled entire herds for less insolence. Good thing we're not on your farm. She slammed the archive door on his snarling face, engaging 5 manual bolts before sprinting toward the airlock. Cyril waited, quivering, its suit now more crack than casing. The Quix thrust the drive at her. He's connected to the Bovaran Synod. Migration logs show he replaced the real principal Velm 7 years ago. Lena slotted the drive into her terminal. The screen lit with casualty reports, diplomatic transcripts, all damning. But it was the final file that froze her blood. A vid of the real principal Velm, half dissolved in a Bovaran digestion vat, screaming as enzyme pumps filled his lungs. Cyril made a sound like a deflating balloon. Its bioluminescence dimmed to a ghostly white. Then it collapsed, tentacles curling inward, desiccating. Lena caught the Quix before it hit the floor. The hydration suit's monitor screamed. Electrolytes. Critical. Neural functions crashing. Sabotage. The principal must have rigged the environmental controls draining moisture from the sector. She hauled Cyril toward the emergency wash station. The Quix's body light and brittle as fallen leaves. Stay with me, kid, she muttered, submerging its suit in ionized water. Scholars don't get to die before peer review. Cyril's tentacles spasmed, restabilizing. Lena slumped against the wall. Flamethrower clutched to her chest. The archive's air tasted of burnt copper and impending regret. Somewhere beyond the vault door, the principal's footsteps thudded, patient, inevitable. She pulled up the holovid again, the cheese missiles arcing across a corpse-strewn plain. Humanity's finest hour, the narrator had called it. Lena had always wondered who'd written that script. Now she knew. Survivors lied, but sometimes they etched their truths in the lies of others. Chapter 3. The air in the archives thickened with the static hum of dying systems. Dr. Lena Choi pressed her palm against the vault door, feeling the vibrations of the principal's footsteps through the metal. Rhythmic, unhurried. Bovarans never ran. They loped, their six-legged gait engineered for patience. Cyril floated behind her, its hydration suit patched with emergency sealant from the wash station, bioluminescence flickering like a faulty bulb. The Quix's tentacles trembled as it clutched the salvage drive, its voice modulator crackling. He will breach the door in 6 minutes. The probability is 98.3%. Lena snorted. Tell me something that isn't in the syllabus. She turned, surveying the archive's carcass. Frost gnawed at the server stacks, their data cores gutted. The custodial drones had been thorough, neurolytic solvent pooled in iridescent puddles, chewing through floor panels. But the Quix were thorough too. Cyril had rerouted emergency power to the eastern airlock, its terminal glowing faintly behind a curtain of dangling cables. A way out. Maybe. Can you access the environmental controls? Lena asked, stripping a wire bundle from the wall. Cyril extruded a pseudopod toward the terminal. The principal locked the system, but the Quix hesitated, its bioluminescence dimming to a guilty mauve. I have a back door. From last semester's ethics module. Lena raised an eyebrow. You hacked your own grades. Only one assignment. Cyril's suit flushed coral. The essay on human emotional fragility was culturally biased. The terminal flared to life, bathing the room in a sickly green. Lena's fingers danced over the keys, pulling up schematics. The Academy's ventilation system sprawled like a metallic circulatory system, its central hub buried beneath the botanical wing. She traced the path. Service tunnels, hydroponic chambers, then a straight shot to the comms array. If they could reach it, they could broadcast the drive's contents galaxy-wide. A big if. Cyril's tentacles stiffened. The principal is overriding the door codes. Lena grabbed the flamethrower, its weight a cold comfort. Time to graduate. They fled through a maintenance hatch, descending into the Academy's underbelly. The service tunnels here were narrower, the walls sweating condensation that reeked of ammonia and decay. Lena's boots slipped on lichen-slick grates, the darkness punctuated only by Cyril's pallid glow. The Quix drifted closer, its voice modulator barely audible over the drip of corroded pipes. Why did you become an archivist? The question caught her off guard. Lena focused on the path ahead, where rusted conduits clawed at the ceiling like arthritic fingers. Same reason you hacked your grades. Spite. But the truth was stickier. She remembered the first archive she'd ever visited. A bunker on Mars. Its walls lined with terabytes of Earth's lost art. A Bovaran shell had cratered the site 6 hours later. She'd salvaged a single data chip from the rubble, its contents reduced to a half-second clip of a dancer mid-pirouette. Beauty, she'd learned, was a flame. Fragile, worth guarding. The hydroponic chamber was a graveyard. Genetically engineered ferns lay wilted in their beds, leaves curled into brittle fists. The air hung heavy with the sweetness of rotting fruit, the UV growth lamps flickering arrhythmically. Lena's skin prickled. Too quiet. Even the hum of irrigation pumps had died. Cyril drifted toward a control panel, its bioluminescence reflecting off shattered glass. The moisture sensors are offline. The plants suffocated. Lena finished. She knelt, brushing a desiccated leaf. It crumbled to dust. The principal's work. Bovarans hated excess. Water, growth, life. Efficiency demanded sterility. A guttural rumble shook the chamber. Above them the ventilation ducts groaned, their aluminum panels buckling under the weight of something large. Lena shoved Cyril behind a support column as a tripartite jaw burst through the ceiling, hooked barbs glistening with enzyme saliva. The principal's true face. Mask discarded. Dr. Choi. The voice was a landslide, grinding and wet. You cultivate such messy loyalties. Lena ignited the flamethrower, the pilot light casting hellish shadows. And you're a shitty gardener. The Bovaran lunged, its bulk crashing through the growth lapse. Lena rolled, firing a warning burst that scorched the air. The flames licked the creature's hide, but it barely flinched. Bovarans evolved on a high methane world. Fire was a tickle. Cyril screamed as a barbed tongue lashed its hydration suit, cracking the casing. Lena dove, tackling the Quix behind a compost vat. The principal's laughter vibrated in her teeth. Run, she hissed, shoving the drive into Cyril's trembling tentacles. Get to the comms array. I'll distract him. The Quix's bioluminescence flared panic white. You'll die. Yeah. Well, Lena ejected the flamethrower's fuel cell, priming it as a makeshift bomb. I've graded enough essays on human resilience to know how this ends. She stepped into the open, fuel cell raised. The principal's compound eyes narrowed, recognizing the threat. Lena smirked. You want to know why we used cheese? Because it's funny. Because laughing at death scares you more than death itself. She hurled the cell. The explosion was deafening. Fire engulfed the chamber, melting polymer tanks into molten rivers. Lena sprinted through the chaos, heat singeing her back. The principal's roar shook the walls, but she didn't look back. Cyril waited at the comms array, its suit leaking electrolytes like tears. Lena slammed the drive into the terminal, her fingers clumsy with adrenaline. The holovid bloomed. Cheese missiles. Bovaran surrender. The truth in all its gory glory. Broadcasting now. Cyril whispered. The terminal sparked. Dying. The principal's shadow loomed in the doorway. Hide blistered. Jaws unhinged. Lena reached for the flamethrower. Empty. Cyril floated forward. Tentacles spread. We are Quix. We remember. The Quix's bioluminescence erupted, a supernova of photons and defiance. The principal recoiled, his light-sensitive eyes searing. Lena seized the moment, wrenching a panel from the wall. Behind it gaped a maintenance shaft, its ladder leading to the surface. Go, she barked, shoving Cyril upward. They climbed. The principal's howls, chasing them into daylight. Chapter 4. The comms array's collapse left the sky bleeding. Smoke from the hydroponic chamber. Fire coiled upward, staining the stratosphere ochre, while the Academy's alarms wailed a dissonant elegy. Dr. Lena Choi leaned against a shattered solar panel, her lungs raw with ash and irony. The holovid had broadcast for 11 seconds, long enough for the Bovaran surrender speech to loop twice, before the principal's sabotage severed the feed. 11 seconds, the duration of a held breath, a skipped heartbeat, a punchline left dangling. Cyril floated nearby, its hydration suit, a mosaic of sealant and desperation.
The Quix's bioluminescence had faded to a febrile gray. Its tentacles curled protectively around the salvage drive. The galactic net is buzzing. It wheezed. Fragmentary uploads. Speculation. Memes. Its voice modulator crackled. One user called it the cheesepocalypse. Lena laughed. The sound startled her. Jagged and unfamiliar. She hadn't laughed since the purge of Tal Ceti. Not truly. Back then, it had been a different kind of fire. They limped toward the auditorium. The only structure still powered. Its domed roof glowing like a misplaced star. The path was littered with debris. Twisted drones, shredded textbooks. A single hydration suit helmet filled with rainwater. Lena paused, her boot nudging the helmet. A Quix student's name was etched inside. Cleaneth. She wondered if it had been among the three who'd first uncovered the holovid. Survivors, she called them. Now she wondered if survival was just the interval between regrets. The principal awaited them on stage. He'd shed all pretense of humanity. His Bovaran form loomed under the spotlights. 6 legs splayed like a grotesque chandelier. Tripartite jaws. Dripping enzyme-laced saliva that hissed where it struck the floor. The auditorium stank of scorched metal and wet hay. A barnyard nightmare. Behind him, a hologram flickered. The same sanitized history vids Lena had been forced to teach. Humanity's noble pacifism. The lie now crackled with static. The edges bleeding pixels. Lena stepped into the light. Flamethrower strapped to her back. Empty but for symbolism. Xeral hovered at her flank. Drive clutched like a talisman. The seats were empty. No students. No faculty. Just the principal's rasping breath. And the ghost of applause tracks playing on loop. You look like hell, Lena said. The Bovaran's voice emerged from wall-mounted speakers, digitized to hide the damage she'd inflicted. You misunderstand. This is not a war. It is curation. Your species cannot be trusted with history. You ferment it. She unslung the flamethrower, aiming at the hologram. And you put it in a fucking museum. The projector exploded in a shower of sparks. The principal lunged, but Lena was already moving, darting into the aisles, where his bulk couldn't follow. Xeral soared upward, its bioluminescence flaring as it interfaced with the auditorium's sound system. The holovid erupted anew, not the cheese war, but the enzyme vat footage of Principal Valm's death. The real Principal Valm's death. The real...
His scream syncopated with the Bovaran's roars. Pathes! The principal bellowed, compound eyes reflecting the carnage. Lena climbed onto a concession stand, her knees protesting. You want to censor us? Fine. But you don't get to gag them. She gestured to the walls, where Quix scholars now pressed their translucent forms against the glass, bioluminescence pulsing in furious crimson. They'd come, not for her, but for the truth, or maybe for the spectacle. History, she supposed, was both. The principal staggered, his exoskeleton buckling where the fuel cell had scorched him. Lena saw it then, the tremor in his middle legs, the way his jaws overcompensated, fear, not of death, but of ridicule. The great cheese war redux. Xeral descended, drive slotting into the console. The holovid spread across every screen in the galaxy, a patchwork broadcast spliced from emergency bandwidth and stolen satellites. Lena's face appeared, bloodied and grinning beside the text. Humanity's Apology Tour. Live from Earth. The Quix had added emojis. The Bovaran High Command's response was immediate. A ceasefire, a recall of all operatives, a tersely worded memo about reassessing diplomatic priorities. The principal froze, his jaws slack, as the orders scrolled across his retinal display. Lena recognized the moment, the second when a predator realizes it's become prey. He collapsed, not with a roar, but a whimper. Enzymes pooled beneath him, dissolving the stage. Lena approached, flamethrower raised. "Do it," he rasped. "Be the monster we wrote you as." She studied him, the chitinous plates, the too many eyes, the fear masquerading as fury. For decades, she'd rehearsed this moment. Vengeance for Tau Ceti, for Nguyen, for every archive reduced to ash. Her finger hovered over the trigger, then she spat on his jaw. "Nah," she said. "I'll let the memes kill you." "Nah." The aftermath was quiet. Galactic media swarmed the academy, but Lena retreated to the archives. Let the Quix handle the interviews. They'd earned their spotlight. She rebuilt the servers, scrubbed the neurolytic stains, and ignored the hollow porters buzzing at her door. Ixeril found her at dawn, floating through the stacks with a pizza box balanced on its tentacles. "They're debating lifting humanity's war ban," it said. The Quix Collective submitted a brief on the ethical necessity of creative malice. Lena grabbed a slice. The cheese was Galactic regulation synthetic, bland as starlight. "They'll say no, probably." Ixeril's bioluminescence rippled amusement. "But they'll laugh while doing it. That's your victory." She snorted, grease staining the holovid recovery logs. Outside, the first real sunrise in weeks painted the sky tangerine and bruised purple. Somewhere, a Bovaran delegation was boarding a shuttle, their tails tucked. Somewhere, a Quix scholar was writing a thesis on irony. And somewhere, deep in the galaxy, a human child was watching a clip of cheese missiles and giggling. Lena Choi, snarky xeno-historian, ex-archivist, and occasional arsonist, leaned back. The flamethrower, retired to a display case, caught the light. Survivors lied. But sometimes, they baked the truth into something ridiculous. She took another bite. It tasted like peace.